The mozzarella on most frozen pizzas in America is not mozzarella. It is a rehydrated, oil and starch engineered substitute manufactured in a processing facility, designed to look like real cheese under a broiler and legally allowed to be called mozzarella on the front of the box. That is not an accident. That is a strategy. Americans spend over $6 billion a year on frozen pizza. $6 billion. And the majority of that money is going toward one thing. The box, the photography, the words wood-fired style and Italian-inspired printed over a product whose ingredient list reads like an industrial chemistry manual. You are not paying for better pizza. You are funding a better marketing department. Today, we are auditing the freezer aisle. I spent 3 weeks reading every ingredient list, cross-referencing every label claim against USDA and FDA standards, and tracking down the lawsuits these companies hoped you would never find. We found 6 brands you need to put back on the shelf immediately, and 3 that are actually doing it right. And one of them is more affordable than the garbage it is sitting next to. I spent 3 weeks auditing every brand on the shelf to find the truth, and the results were not what I expected. Here is how the math works. Real mozzarella requires fresh whole milk, bacterial cultures, rennet, and a minimum of 2 days to properly form and age. That process costs roughly 3 times more per pound than the alternative. So what is the alternative? Casein protein, extracted from low-grade dairy, spray-dried into a powder, rehydrated with water, and emulsified with soybean oil and modified cornstarch until it behaves like cheese when heated. It stretches, it browns, it photographs identically to real mozzarella, and it costs a fraction of the price. The crust goes through the same engineering logic. Proper pizza dough is fermented, rested, and handled with time. Time costs money on a production line running 20,000 units an hour. So manufacturers replace fermentation with chemistry. L-cysteine hydrochloride to relax gluten instantly. Ammonium sulfate to accelerate yeast activity. Sodium stearoyl lactylate to simulate a soft, airy crumb that would otherwise take 12 hours to develop naturally. The result is structurally identical to real dough, until you read the label. And then there is the sauce. Real tomato sauce requires reduction time and quality tomatoes. Industrial pizza sauce is tomato paste thinned with water, sweetened with sugar or high fructose corn syrup, and thickened with modified cornstarch to fake the consistency of a slow-cooked product. Every component of this pizza, the cheese, the crust, the sauce, has been systematically replaced with a cheaper engineered substitute. And because labeling laws only require disclosure in the fine print, most consumers never find out. The skip list, brand 1. Totino's is the best-selling frozen pizza in America by unit volume. That popularity is built entirely on price and portion size, not on what is inside the box. Flip it over. The cheese listed is imitation mozzarella cheese, a blend rehydrated from casein powder and soybean oil. The word imitation is right there, in the ingredient list, in the smallest possible font. The front of the box says pizza. The ingredient list says something else entirely. The crust is conditioned with sodium stearoyl lactylate and mono and diglycerides, and the sauce contains sugar as the 3rd ingredient. This is a product engineered at every layer to minimize cost, and it is being sold to families as a fast, easy meal. Brand 2. Red Baron. Red Baron ran a campaign built around the phrase, "No artificial preservatives." In 2020, a class action lawsuit alleged the claim was deliberately misleading. The product contains sodium stearoyl lactylate, a chemical emulsifier that functions as a preservative and dough conditioner. and hydrolyzed soy and corn protein, which contains free glutamates and functions to chemically enhance flavor in place of real ingredients. The lawsuit argued that technically labeling one component as preservative-free while using preservative-functioning compounds elsewhere was deceptive. The marketing says heritage. The ingredient list tells a different story. Brand 3. DiGiorno. DiGiorno positions itself as the premium frozen pizza. It's not delivery, the slogan goes. Except the ingredient list undermines that positioning at every line. The cheese blend contains modified food starch alongside the dairy components, functioning as a filler and texture stabilizer. The crust is built on enriched flour conditioned with datum, diacetyl tartaric acid ester of mono, and diglycerides, a synthetic emulsifier that replaces fermentation time. The sodium content across a full DiGiorno pizza regularly exceeds 2,200 milligrams. That is almost your entire recommended daily intake in one box. You are paying a premium price for an ingredient list that reads like a mid-tier industrial product. Brand 4. Jack's frozen pizza contains L-cysteine hydrochloride in its crust, a dough conditioner that can be synthetically produced or derived from duck feathers and human hair, depending on the supplier. The label says nothing about origin. The source contains both sugar and modified food starch, stacked together to bulk up a product that would otherwise be too thin to pass visual inspection. The meat toppings are processed blends containing sodium nitrite, a preservative that has been associated with long-term health concerns in multiple peer-reviewed studies. The box shows a generous, rustic pizza. The ingredient list shows an assembly of preserved, conditioned, and engineered components. Brand 5. Tony's markets itself as a classic, straightforward frozen pizza. It is not. The crust contains ammonium sulfate, a compound more commonly associated with fertilizer and bread baking shortcuts, and calcium propionate as a mold inhibitor. Calcium propionate is a synthetic preservative that extends shelf life, but has been flagged in several nutrition studies for potential effects on gut health. The cheese is a part-skim mozzarella blend padded with modified cornstarch, and the sauce is thickened with both modified food starch and guar gum, two separate thickeners stacked to give body to what is essentially diluted tomato paste. This is not a straightforward pizza. This is a chemistry project dressed as one. Brand 6. Great value. Walmart. Great value frozen pizza is the store brand option designed to undercut every competitor on price. To hit that price point, every ingredient is sourced at the absolute floor of the quality spectrum. Artificial flavors appear in both the sauce and the cheese blend, a signal that the real ingredients lack enough taste on their own to satisfy without chemical enhancement. Soybean oil is the primary fat source throughout the product. The crust contains multiple dough conditioners stacked together, and the total ingredient count on a standard great value frozen pizza exceeds 25 line items. There is no heritage here. There is no craft. There is only a margin calculation dressed up in a bag. Before you ever put a frozen pizza in your cart, run these 3 checks in the freezer aisle. They take 30 seconds and they will tell you everything. First, the 20 ingredient rule. Count the total number of ingredients on the back of the box. If that number exceeds 20, put it back. A real pizza, crust, sauce, cheese, toppings should not require more than 15 ingredients to assemble. Every ingredient above 20 is either a preservative, a conditioner, or a filler added to compensate for a lower quality base ingredient. Second, the cheese check. Scan the ingredient list for the words imitation, analog, rehydrated, or casein before the word mozzarella. If any of those words appear in that sequence, the product does not contain real mozzarella. The FDA does not require the front of the box to say this clearly. The ingredient list is where the truth lives. Third, the sodium math. Find the per serving sodium content, then multiply it by the number of servings in the box. Most frozen pizzas list 2 to 3 servings per box. If the total sodium across the full box exceeds 2,000 milligrams, you are looking at a product that relies on salt to deliver flavor, because the base ingredients cannot do it on their own. The real list. Brand 1, Amy's Kitchen. Amy's Kitchen was founded in 1987 by a couple in Sonoma County, California, after the birth of their daughter, Amy. They wanted to create organic, vegetarian convenience food that did not require a chemistry degree to understand. Their frozen pizza uses organic wheat flour with no added dough conditioners, organic tomato sauce with no added sugar or starch, and real part-skim mozzarella, not an analog blend. The ingredient list on an Amy's cheese pizza runs to 12 items. 12. Every one of them is recognizable. The price point is higher than Totino's, but it is comparable to DiGiorno, a brand that charges you the same amount for a significantly more engineered product. This is the value play hiding in plain sight. Brand 2, Banza. Banza was founded on the premise that a better ingredient base changes everything. Their pizza crust is built on chickpea flour rather than refined white flour, delivering 14 grams of protein and 5 grams of fiber per serving, numbers that a conventional frozen pizza cannot approach. There are no dough conditioners. There is no L-cysteine, no DATEM, no ammonium sulfate. The cheese is real mozzarella, and the sauce contains no added sweeteners. Banza proves that you do not have to sacrifice convenience for ingredient integrity. The texture is different from a traditional crust, and they are transparent about that. What they are not willing to compromise on is what goes into it. Brand 3, Wild Mike's. Wild Mike's is the brand that earns the most respect on this list, precisely because it delivers a traditional frozen pizza experience, not a health repositioned alternative, using clean ingredients. Real 4-cheese blend, no calcium propionate, no L-cysteine, no artificial flavors. The crust is a standard wheat crust without a single synthetic conditioner in the formulation. The sauce is tomato paste, olive oil, garlic, and spices. That is it. Wild Mike's is proof that the industry's argument that clean ingredients cannot survive freezing, shipping, and reheating at scale is simply not true. It is not a chemistry problem. It was always a profit margin decision. Here is what the frozen pizza industry does not want you to understand. The gap between a Totino's and a Wild Mike's is not a gap in technology or logistics. It is a gap in priorities. Every single shortcut on those 6 skip list ingredient panels was a deliberate choice. A decision made in a boardroom to protect a margin, not to protect you. Your health is not a commodity for these corporations to optimize. The next time you are in the freezer aisle, flip the box, count the ingredients, find the cheese check, run the sodium math. It takes 30 seconds, and it is the single most powerful thing a consumer can do, because once you know how to read a label, the marketing has no power over you. The food tells the truth, because you have the right to know it. Subscribe for more investigations. We are just getting started.